I married my childhood sweetheart, but he changed his heart and fell in love with someone else. After the person he liked returned to the country, we lost a child during an argument. Later, when I finally decided to give up pestering him, he got drunk and passed out in front of my house. Didn't we agree to raise a kitten together? On the day I found out I was pregnant, his first love came back. My WeChat rang, and it was a message from Ryan. Luna, Jolin is coming back. My heart, which had been gradually filled with joy because of the new life, sank to the bottom. His messages kept coming. She's on tomorrow's flight. She's only familiar with us in City A. Shall we go pick her up? I stood at the entrance of the hospital. The winter snow outside hadn't melted yet, and the cold wind made me shiver all over. Finally, I replied with trembling hands, "Okay." 5 years had passed. Just when I thought everything was going in a good direction, Jolin came back. Nobody remembered what happened 5 years ago. Even Ryan seemed to be deliberately forgetting it. His message seemed to be deliberately telling me, it's all in the past. Everything is over. We can face the people from the past openly. The airport was huge. After so many years, I still recognized her at a glance. She was wearing a white coat with a gray sweater inside. Her long chestnut curly hair hung lazily on her chest. "What's wrong with you?" He noticed my slightly trembling body and looked down at me. I trembled as I reached out to hold his hand, but I saw him subconsciously withdraw his hand. The next second, his dry and warm palm covered my hand. He rubbed my hand vigorously and blew on it. "Are you cold?" I looked at his moving lips with a pale face and forcefully pulled my hand back. Why was he doing this? Was he deliberately putting on a show for me? Just like when he asked me to pick up Jolin with him, so that I would think he had nothing to do with Jolin anymore? His eyes changed a little, but he didn't say anything. I lowered my head and saw Jolin's slender high heels. Step by step, it was as if she was stepping on the tip of my heart. "Luna, Ryan." She looked at me with the same appearance as she had years ago. Her eyes were curved, filled with tenderness. She gave me an ambiguous smile. I saw it all. "Luna, are you still shy?" I wore a smile with no emotion on my face. Ryan came to my rescue. He pulled me into his arms. "Luna blushes easily. Don't tease her." I stared at him blankly, but felt even more embarrassed. I thought that I shouldn't have worn this padded coat today. Otherwise, I wouldn't have looked like a short and fat bear in front of the graceful Jolin. I thought that my face probably wasn't red because when facing Jolin, I always looked short and pale. What Ryan didn't understand was that Jolin was a 6-year-long nightmare for me. "Oh, I'm starving." "Ryan, you're treating us to a meal." Jolin pushed her suitcase in front of Ryan. My heart trembled with the suitcase. I hoped Ryan would refuse. But he didn't. He took it casually and smiled. "What do you want to eat?" "Hot pot." Jolin said she was carsick. She tilted her head. "I want to sit in the front row. I've been in the car all day and I'm very uncomfortable." Ryan subconsciously looked at me. 2 seconds later, he was about to say something when I smiled at him and then opened the back door and got in. She talked all the way, talking about her life abroad and laughing from time to time, and I stared blankly at the sticker on the passenger seat that said, "Ryan's lover's seat." Ryan's lover's seat. Well done, Ryan. You're so romantic now. Jolin turned around and looked at me with a bright and generous smile. "Luna, let me tell you, when he was with me before, he wasn't that careful. Once I asked him to write Jolin's seat on the back of his bike. He thought it was childish. I didn't expect. It's all in the past." Ryan's voice was a bit cold. He met my eyes through the rearview mirror, and I caught the panic in his eyes. Why was he panicked? What was he feeling guilty about? I remembered when he bought this sticker. I didn't say anything but secretly posted a WeChat moment that was only visible to myself. The content of that WeChat moment was, "Ryan said this is my exclusive seat." So it was just a joke after all. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, wearing a faint smile as if it didn't matter. I followed them to a small hot pot restaurant in City A. It was in a very remote place. There were many households in the winding alleys. The clothes hung out to dry in winter had become stiff, the smell of barbecue stalls and skewer shops made me feel a bit nauseous. I had never seen Ryan come to such a place to eat. Ryan held my hand, but his eyes were fixed on her. Under our feet was the crunching sound of stepping on the snow. I slowed down my pace, but he didn't notice. Then I let go of his hand. I watched their backs. Ryan was wearing a black coat today, which matched Jolene very well. He even reached out to help Jolene when her foot slipped on the stairs. The hot pot restaurant was lively. Most of the customers were students from the nearby university. I followed them. Ah, it's you guys. You haven't been here for years. Are you married already? The landlady greeted us cheerfully. I opened the curtain and went in, and then I heard these words. Both of them looked a bit embarrassed. Ryan suddenly turned around and pulled me to his side. This is my wife. The landlady smiled awkwardly. She looks like a blessed girl. The frog meat hot pot was steaming. Jolene walked to the corner of the restaurant and sat down. Compared to the chaos outside, the inside of the restaurant was very clean. Jolene ate very gracefully. She frowned, her nose turning red from the spiciness. While I didn't have any appetite at all, Ryan put some frog meat into my bowl. Amid the spreading steam, I put down my chopsticks. I don't eat spicy food. I looked at him. My voice carried a sharpness that I hadn't even noticed myself, and it seemed to make the restaurant quiet for a few seconds. Ryan then remembered my taste. He reached out and rubbed my head, then waited for me for a moment. Then he went out. Jolene looked at us and said in a strangely nostalgic tone, "He's so nice to you." I looked at Jolene in front of me and just felt that she was still the same as years ago, like an insurmountable mountain standing between Ryan and me. I had been climbing and climbing, but when I reached the top of the mountain, I found there was another mountain in front of me. I asked, "Wasn't he nice to you?" Jolene shook her head. "No, he was too childish back then. He always couldn't do what he promised." Remembering something, she fell silent again. I had had several confrontations with Jolene, all like wars without gunpowder. Whenever she appeared, she could defeat me completely. I lowered my head and saw a small line engraved on the table, "Ryan will always love Jolene." I lowered my head and gently brushed my fingers over it. Jolene seemed to notice it. She looked up and explained dryly, "Luna, it's all in the past." The person with a coolness on him sat down beside me. He was carrying a small bowl of wontons and a bottle of hot soy milk in his hand. I stared blankly at the small words engraved on the table. When the hot wontons were served, I suddenly stood up. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't bear the oppressive feeling that came all the time, which almost made it hard for me to breathe. "Get out of the way." Ryan looked at me and didn't move. I tried to force my way out, but he hugged my waist. "Luna, what's wrong with you again?" I looked down at him. He asked me what was wrong with me again. It was always like this, as if I was the only one being unreasonable. "I want to go home." Finally, I said weakly. Before I left, I saw Jolene lowering her head to eat, trying to hide her red eyes. He would choose me occasionally, and then fall into endless guilt towards Jolene. Ryan didn't say anything either. He just promised me when we got home, "Don't think too much. There's really nothing between us." He still went to work as usual, but I sensed that something was wrong. He was working overtime for longer and longer hours, and his complexion was getting worse and worse. Even when I was about to tell him about the little life in my belly, he impatiently interrupted me. "Can we talk about it later? Luna, I'm really tired recently." So I never got to tell him about it. He said he was tired, and I believed him. At night, I saw him leaning against the balcony, smoking all night. Actually, he hadn't smoked for a long time. After I said I hated the smell of cigarettes, he never touched them again. I quietly watched him trembling as he smoked one cigarette after another. Suddenly, I remembered that his good friend had posted a WeChat moment in the afternoon, talking about their class reunion the day before yesterday. Most of them brought their families, but Ryan had never mentioned it to me, and in the video in that WeChat moment, I saw Jolene intimately snuggling up to another person, while Ryan was silently drinking wine beside them. I slowed down the video and played it frame by frame. My mind had never been so clear. The strange changes in Ryan these days suddenly seemed to make sense. Because Jolene had started a new relationship, Ryan had looked so jealous at the class reunion. I opened the balcony door, looked at him gloomily, reached out and snatched his cigarette, threw it on the ground, and crushed it with my foot. "Why are you smoking again?" He closed his eyes, his shoulders suddenly drooping. He leaned against the balcony and said casually, "I just felt like smoking." My eyes turned red, and I sneered. I raised my hand and slapped him on the face. The crisp sound of the slap was accompanied by my hysterical roar. "Is it because of her? Because Jolene came back and found someone new? If you really miss her that much and love her so much, then go get her back." He suddenly raised his eyes, slowly straightened up, and his voice was a bit cold. "It has nothing to do with her." It was as if there was a fire burning in my heart. Whenever it came to Jolene, it would burn even more fiercely. I reached out and pushed him hard. "Ryan, what's the use of you being jealous here? There are so many people in the world who are 1,000 times, 10,000 times better than you. It's normal that Jolene doesn't want you. You're such a jerk." He grabbed my hand and pulled me into his arms. He was very cold. "Luna, how did you become such a shrew?" But my emotions strangely calmed down because of this sentence, and my hand gradually dropped. On this snowy winter night, he held me in his arms and wrapped my body tightly with his black padded coat. The heat from our young bodies embracing each other made me shiver all over. I cried and laughed. How did it come to this? Yes, how did I become like this? I looked up at him. "Do you still remember what I used to be like?" Hearing this, he carefully kissed away the tears on my face, gently pecked at my face, my nose, and then my lips, and finally whispered an apology. "I'm sorry, Luna, I'm sorry. I love you, I love you. We used to be like this too." After a big fight, we would hug and kiss, as if we were making up, but this time, I pushed him away. "Ryan, do you still remember what I used to be like?" He didn't dare to say it, and I didn't dare to think about it either. Ryan and I were childhood sweethearts. He was the older brother who lived next door. At that time, I also had a happy family. My father was the president of a small company, and my mother was a dancer. My mother wanted me to follow in her footsteps. She didn't allow me to eat candies or junk food from outside and forced me to dance all day long. Ryan would watch me dance outside my window after school every day and then bring me around fruit candy. Sometimes it was peach flavored, and sometimes it was green apple flavored. I liked the green apple flavored ones the most. He said that when I danced, I looked like a little butterfly. Then I would hold the candy in my mouth and dance faster and faster under his praise. When we were in primary school, because our two families often visited each other, we were in the same class. Every time before going to school, I could see a neatly dressed little boy standing outside my door, with a clear voice saying, "Luna, Luna, it's time to go to school." At that time, he had the demeanor of a little teacher. He taught me to walk on the outside of the sidewalk, to watch out for cars when walking, and to stop at red lights and go at green lights. When we were divided into classes for junior high school, we weren't put in the same class. I cried for a long time at my seat because of that. Then, in the next second, someone tapped my forehead gently. I turned around with teary eyes and saw a person smiling broadly. At that time, he was already quite tall. The handsome young man had fine hair on his forehead, and the light outside shone on his face. I could even see the tiny hairs on his skin. He smiled and said, "I knew that some people would start crying again if I wasn't around, so I begged my mom to let me come here." I said stubbornly, "It's not because of you." But I still stopped crying and smiled. After graduating from high school, when it came to the division of liberal arts and science subjects, he often came to outside our classroom after evening self-study classes. Sometimes he would bring a big bag of snacks and throw them to the people in our class. The others would jeer, "Ryan has come to please his girlfriend's family again." I don't expect you to remember the kindness of these snacks. I just hope you can take good care of my Luna. I blushed and buried my head on the desk, unable to lift it up under the jeering of everyone. He secretly slipped an apple-flavored candy into my palm and whispered to the others with a smile, "Stop jeering. My Luna blushes easily." Later, he transferred to the liberal arts class for me. On the way home from school, I asked him why. He carried my books for me, walked beside me, and reached out to tap my forehead. It's so tiring to run to your class every day. Transferring directly is more convenient and saves trouble. Even though he didn't really like liberal arts, he was talented and smart. The math teacher at that time even tried to persuade him to stay many times. At that time, when I passed by the office, through the gap in the door, I saw the laid-back young man looking bored, with the teacher earnestly trying to persuade him in front of him. "Ryan, I'm serious. It's a pity that you don't study science with such a good brain." The person opposite said indifferently, "I can learn anything well with my brain. There's nothing to be pity about. To be honest, are you doing this because of Luna?" The young man didn't deny it. He just gave a soft "uh-huh" and slightly raised his chin. I could even see the smile in his eyes and at the corners of his eyebrows. "I'm telling you, at your age, you shouldn't take love too seriously. These are all fleeting and won't last long." Ryan straightened up and looked a bit smug. "Others may not, but Luna and I will definitely last long." There were many girls who liked him at that time. My school bag was often stuffed with love letters for him. I was a bit angry, but I didn't know how to say it, for fear that others would think I was a jealous girl. But he seemed to notice my anger and bent over with laughter, reaching out to pinch my face. "Are you so angry?" He reached out and took my school bag. "Well, how about we be together?" Hearing this, I was stunned for a moment. He bent down to look at me, with his eyes curved. "Next time they give you letters again, you can shout loudly that Ryan is yours." I blushed and then shook my head. "I don't want to." He stopped me. "If you don't want me, who do you want?" "That dark-skinned sports student?" I corrected him. "He has a name." This memory has been in the past for a long time for me, and I can't remember it clearly, what he said or what he did, but I always remember that shining young man. After that time, he promised me a lot of things. He said that he wouldn't go to see Jolene anymore. He seemed to have gone back to how he was before. He would come back to cook for me after work. I painted at home and occasionally went out to get together with friends. However, the relationship between him and me was like an unhealed wound. If you kept covering it up, it would start to fester. I started to behave like I did in the second year after marriage. I checked his mobile phone and his WeChat records. He caught me doing this many times, and each time he helplessly let me fiddle with his phone. "Luna, you're too sensitive. I really have nothing to do with her. Could you trust me a little bit?" When he said this, he was a bit childish and came up to kiss me. I shook my head, avoided his gentle kiss, stared at him, but didn't say a word. Suddenly, I remembered that in the 2 years after marriage, he was also like this. Whenever we had a disagreement, he would start to kiss me. He was always very gentle and careful with me in bed, would take my feelings into account. At that moment, I felt that he seemed to belong to me and that he seemed to love me. Finally, this situation exploded when he fell silent again one day. That day, I made a pot of fresh meat wontons. The night before, he was still whispering in my ear that he wanted to eat them. The next day, he just looked at the wontons and said, "I'm not hungry," then lay on the sofa, silently looking at the screen of his mobile phone. Ryan wasn't a person who didn't like to talk. On the contrary, he was quite talkative. In our relationship since childhood, it was always him chatting in my ear. However, he was silent more and more often. I reached out to him, my gaze as cold as ice, with a bit of suspicion and doubt in it. "Give me your phone." He silently looked at me and threw his phone in front of me. The phone fell on the sofa and bounced once, just like in many previous quarrels. He said, "You're really overly suspicious." He scratched his head, a bit impatient. "Luna, I'm really tired with you like this." And I just picked up the phone, scrolled through his WeChat moments, and sure enough, I saw a photo of Jolene kissing her new boyfriend. I suddenly threw the phone at his face. The corner of the phone hit his forehead, leaving a small red mark. We just stared at each other in this somewhat oppressive atmosphere. "If you're really that jealous, go and win her back. Why are you giving me such a cold shoulder here?" Finally, I opened my mouth, but with endless sarcasm. He sneered and walked out the door. And I just picked up his phone like a mad person. I checked his computer, his emails, his rarely used QQ small account, and even his Weibo account with just a string of numbers. I carefully searched for any clues about Jolin. Finally, I found some phone recordings in a hidden corner of the mobile phone cloud disk. Due to work reasons, he always had the habit of backing up phone recordings. The date was the second day after our wedding. Ryan was dead drunk. At that time, he was still young and was shouting hysterically at the crying person on the phone. "Jolin, I love you, I love you, I love you. If you love me, why did we break up?" It was Jolin's crying voice on the other end of the phone, more like a harsh interrogation. "Ryan, why did we break up?" "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He kept saying sorry. I gritted my teeth, listened to those recordings, and trembled all over, feeling like I was the stick that broke up a couple in love. He didn't originally want to marry me. It was I who forced him to be tied to me and firmly branded him with the label of Luna. He must hate me to death. I found all the recordings of this number. The most recent ones were from a few months ago. He was chatting with Jolin about the company's affairs, his work, and his troubles in life. And Jolin would gently and slowly comfort him. He would occasionally mention me, but none of it was good. But I couldn't hear anything clearly anymore. I sat on the ground and listened to their conversation all night. Finally, only the questions Jolin asked him echoed in my ears. "How's life after marriage? Are you getting along well with your little wife?" "A bit tired, it's okay. She's very obedient and cares about me." "What about me? Didn't I care about you when we were together?" Ryan just laughed. "There were always a lot of people around you before. I wasn't the best one. Later, I always wanted to become better. Now that I think about it, I should also thank them. If someone just accidentally looked at me, you would think that he had designs on me." I was laughing and crying at the same time. Finally, I lay on the ground, looking crazy. I remembered that there was a male colleague in the company who didn't know that I was married and often showed his affection to me. When I told Ryan about it, he just rubbed my head. "I believe you." It turned out that it wasn't because of trust but just because he didn't care. The recordings kept playing, but it seemed that they could never finish. On all the nights when he said he was working overtime in the 3 years after our marriage, they were chatting all night long, talking about how his little wife lost her temper with him and bothered him. He told her all his troubles, but he never wanted to open up to me. He came back at noon the next day. The biggest quarrel in our history broke out between us. I frantically smashed the furniture in the room until it was in a mess. Then I crazily pulled his clothes and scratched his face, looking so ferocious as if the person in front of me was my enemy. He grabbed my hands, with an unprecedented look of disappointment in his eyes. "Luna, what are you going crazy about again?" I laughed with tears streaming down my face and gradually loosened my fingers on him. "Luna, you're sick." He paused. "You should go to see a doctor." He didn't coax me or give me countless assurances as usual. Look how quickly a man's heart can change. After Jolin came back, he didn't even want to lie to me anymore. "I'm leaving." He seemed tired and turned around to leave again. I sneered, looking at the person in front of me, feeling extremely strange. I even didn't understand why I had become like this because of such a person. "Get out. Go find your Jolin. It's best if you rekindle your old flame. Let you see how hypocritical you are." The door was suddenly closed, leaving a mess behind. I opened my mobile phone, looking at the few contacts in it, but suddenly didn't know who to turn to. I burst into loud sobs in the messy room and suddenly felt that my life was like a joke. I lay on the ground until late at night and then I muddled through to get some water to drink. The cold water went down my throat, and my mind suddenly became a bit clearer. It wasn't until I felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen that I suddenly remembered that there was still a little life in my belly. I was in so much pain that my face turned pale and my whole body cramped. I covered my lower abdomen and slowly squatted down. The night was extremely long, as if there was no end in sight. I crawled to the living room, tremblingly found my mobile phone, found Ryan in the contacts, and called him several times, but the call was hung up. When I called again, his phone was already turned off. My heart gradually sank. Finally, I dialed the hospital's phone number. It was so painful that my consciousness became a bit blurred. The blood flowed down my legs. I suddenly realized what I had lost. I shed tears and curled myself up. I'm sorry, my unborn baby. I actually loved children very much. When I was looking forward to having a child in the later period of my marriage, I had already thought that I would only have one child in the future. Whether it was a boy or a girl, he or she would have all the love from my father and me. After my marriage, I had also thought countless times about what my child would be like. I had asked Ryan what our future child would be like. He said, like you, as pretty as you. When the ambulance arrived, I endured the pain, opened the door of my house, and was then helped and carried onto the stretcher. A female doctor came. I grasped her hand and asked her softly, "Is my baby still alive?" She didn't say a word. It was a chaotic night. The bright white lights in the hospital hurt my eyes, but I didn't close them. I just stared stubbornly. The doctor said that it would be very difficult for me to get pregnant again. Hearing this, I was just stunned for a long while. She looked at me gently and said, "There are many factors that can cause infertility. If you take good care of your body, there will still be opportunities in the future." The doctor asked me to inform my family. This sentence made my tears fall all at once. "There's no one," I said. The doctor didn't hear clearly. I shook my head and signed the papers by myself. That day, I had a dream. I dreamed of the summer in my sophomore year of high school. There were problems in my father's company. They quarreled every day, hurling vicious words at each other, tearing at each other crazily, as if they had never loved each other. And I stood at the door, crying, asking them to stop quarreling. I kept crying and crying, saying, stop quarreling, but nobody listened to me. The sound of the infusion tube dripping echoed in the ward. I saw another figure in the ward and sat up. "We'll never have a child again." Ryan smoked silently. The smell of the cigarette made my tears fall. I had lost the right to be a mother. Even though I had been looking forward so much to the arrival of my own child. I looked at the man who remained silent on the sofa and suddenly threw the pillow in my hand at him. "Where were you? I'm asking you, where were you last night?" I shouted hysterically. He looked up at me, his eyes red, and finally burst into tears. "Luna, it's not just you who's sad that the baby's gone. I'm sad too. That was my baby too." He came over and hugged me. The stubble on his chin prickled my face. Suddenly, I didn't care where he had been last night. I looked at him and said softly, "I want to go home." He wiped away his tears. "Okay, I'll take you home." He became more careful than before. He even moved his work to our home, as if I were a fragile doll. I never mentioned the child again either, as if that little life had never come. Ryan and I never quarreled again. But every night, I would have nightmares all night long. Then I'd wake up with a start, look at the man sleeping beside me, and stay awake until dawn. He had become much haggard and silent. I even felt that it was at this moment that he and I started to grow up. It's just that the price of this growth was too high, and for a while, I didn't know how to face it. My condition was getting worse and worse. My head hurt so much that I almost had to rely on painkillers every day. Sometimes, when I was sleeping, I would run to the living room and walk around barefoot, going around the living room sofa again and again. Ryan would rush out and hug me from behind, calling my name over and over again. I shook my head at him. "I'm okay. I just can't fall asleep." Sometimes, he would gently coax me to sleep, just like coaxing a child, singing a lullaby for me. He said that this lullaby was originally learned to sing to our child. As he said that, he sobbed softly, and his cold tears dropped onto my face. "Luna, I loved him very much too." And I closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep, without even a bit of emotion in my heart. That day, when he fell asleep, I put on his big leather shoes and went out. The snow on the street was very thick. It even got into my shoes. As I walked, one of the shoes got lost. I didn't go to pick it up. I just looked at that shoe and suddenly burst into loud sobs. The shoe left by Cinderella would let the prince find her, but I could never find that young man again. I couldn't find the 17-year-old Ryan anymore. People on Jingqiao Road that night might all remember a scene. There was a beautiful woman, wearing a white cotton sock on one foot and a pair of oversized leather shoes on the other, grabbing the passers-by and asking, "Have you seen a person this tall wearing the school uniform of Huiwei No. 2 Middle School?" They shook their heads and said no. Later, I was finally tired and sat on the stone bench by the roadside. There was a kind-hearted little girl, about up to my waist, who gave me a pair of suitable cotton shoes. I thanked her, but she just shyly ran to her mother's side. I thought that if I had a child, he or she would probably be as beautiful and kind as her. Not far away, there was a street singer wearing a down jacket, singing a song that I had never heard before. You have to accept that the person you like is actually not that perfect. Accept that he's an ordinary person with an ordinary appearance. The cold wind made my mind extremely clear. I walked slowly forward, thinking, do I really love him? It seemed that I did, and it also seemed that I didn't. I remembered once when he took me to a party with his friends. I had forgotten what the party was about. Someone took the lead in making a vulgar joke about a beautiful woman next door, and he also replied fluently, and there wasn't even a bit of discomfort on his face. I felt that he had changed a lot at that time. He was so rude and had no manners. It even gave me an illusion that, is he really Ryan? He had been in my life for more than 20 years. Since I could talk and remember things, he had been everywhere. He was the one who taught me to do exercises. He was the one who gave me steamed buns during the break when running exercises in his red cotton padded clothes. He was the one who ran all over the streets and alleys to buy the most beautiful princess stationery for me. He was the one who secretly slipped to my window in the middle of the night to ask for a kiss. He was the one who took a 2-day trip and climbed over the school wall in the middle of the night to see me. He was the one who said that we would be together forever. I was crying while thinking. People kept stopping by the roadside and also kept leaving. Some people stopped to hand me tissues and then left. Some people advised me to go home and asked where my family was. Go home? It seemed that I didn't have a home anymore. Without a home, there was no family either. I walked slowly forward again. I don't know how long it had passed. At a street corner, I ran into him. His face was flushed red by the wind. He was still wearing gray cotton slippers on his feet. His face was full of panic. He walked quickly and pulled me into his arms. Luna, let's go home, okay? Please, please. He begged softly, but I didn't feel anything. It seemed that he didn't matter that much to me anymore. I mentioned divorce to him. Actually, this wasn't the first time I had brought it up. After getting married, I had mentioned it countless times. He refused me as he had done every time before. I huddled on the small sofa, but I smiled. There was no quarrel, no fuss. He was looking at the files on the computer beside me, and his fingers tapping on the keyboard were trembling slightly. Ryan, I've been abandoned 3 times in my life. But there won't be a 4th time. This time, I don't want you anymore. In my senior year of high school, my father's company declared bankruptcy. All the family assets were used to pay off the debts. My parents finally ended their shaky marriage and finally stopped their daily quarrels. My mother got into a black car. I followed behind the car, but she didn't turn around even once. In fact, I had never been what she had hoped for. I didn't love dancing. She also thought I was too clumsy, had no talent, and resented that my father's marriage with her had deprived her of her career. She didn't really love me. Only when I was dancing would her eyes stay on me for a few more seconds. When I was very young, I learned to subconsciously please her. She remarried soon and married the boss of a game company in the city. My father sold everything in the house to pay off the debts, and finally, only an empty house was left. My father said, "Luna, Dad will support you." That was the first time I was abandoned. I always remembered the look in that beautiful woman's eyes. She seemed to be getting out of a sea of suffering without any reluctance. When she met my pitiful and pleading eyes, she just frowned slightly. "I'm still your mother." After that, I became absent-minded. I often lost focus in class, and my grades gradually dropped. I only remembered the exercises that I just couldn't understand no matter how hard I tried and the slightly disappointed eyes of the teacher. When it came to the college entrance examination, I didn't get into the university I wanted. Later, Ryan went to City A thousands of miles away, and I chose to repeat a year of study. In my senior year of high school, when I chose to live on campus, we weren't allowed to bring mobile phones. Every night after the self-study class was over, I would run to the school's telephone booth. That was the first time Ryan and I had been separated for such a long time. I was very reluctant to part with him. Every time, I wouldn't stop calling until the school lights were turned off. What I didn't tell him was that I only had 500 yuan for living expenses at school every month. I had to set aside 200 yuan every month to call him. He had asked me about my living expenses, and I told him that it was enough. It seemed that in this way, I could maintain my precarious self-esteem. I cried almost every day. The pressure was so great that I could hardly breathe. There were no acquaintances left in the school. I almost always came and went alone. I couldn't even find anyone to talk to. So every time I called him, I would pour out all the grievances of the whole day, telling him that studying was tiring, that I still couldn't understand the things I had learned, and telling him about the things at school. Zephyr was leaning against the wall, his face hidden in the smoke rising from his fingertips, flickering. He climbed over the school wall and waited downstairs in the girls' dormitory, showing up in front of me in a dusty state. I always remembered that scene. The light of the street lamp shone on his face. He was tall. He caught me who was running towards him and hugged me, spinning me around in the air. My Luna, Luna, baby, I missed you so much. There were dark circles under his eyes. We walked around the playground again and again. He was reluctant to let me go. It was only when the horn of the dormitory ante announcing the closing of the door rang that he opened his suitcase and stuffed all the snacks inside to me. There were always 2 big packs of green apple-flavored fruit candies inside. I walked back to the dormitory, looking back at him step by step with the snacks in my arms. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a gentle smile. That was the brightest color in my dull senior year of high school. I had always been sure that he loved me at that time. So much so that later, I always recalled the past events to deceive myself that he still loved me. In my repeat year of high school, my father borrowed money and opened a small factory. Then he remarried. He didn't tell me about it. When I went home for the monthly holiday, I found that there was another woman in the house. His new wife was a female worker in his factory, named Fiona. She had a junior high school education, had an ordinary appearance, had eyes that curved when she smiled, and seemed to have a good temper. But she was completely different from my mother. When she looked at me, there was a bit of ingratiation in her eyes. But my father seemed to love her very much, even though they didn't have much in common. Sometimes when my father said something she didn't understand, my father would explain it gently. There was a warmth between them that others couldn't blend into. I hadn't seen such a scene for a long time. In my memory, in the past, my father used to chase after my mother, and their relationship was fairly harmonious. After I grew up, they started to quarrel and sometimes even fought. I just sat on the sofa, looking at my father and his new wife, smiling awkwardly. Later, I called Ryan crying and told him about this. Fearfully, I asked him if my dad didn't want me anymore either. He comforted me, saying, "No way." Then his tone rose slightly as he said, "Whoever doesn't want you, this precious one, will wake up crying from their dreams." It seemed that after their divorce, all the good luck left me. Later, during the college entrance examination, my grades were still a mess. I went to an art school in the north to study the art that I loved. The second time I was abandoned was when my younger brother was born. I had just finished my first year of college. The family's factory wasn't doing well that year, and there was a lot of inventory in the warehouse. Dad frowned. He looked up and saw me, as if he just remembered that I was standing at the door. "What's the matter?" His tone wasn't exactly friendly. Suddenly, I didn't know how to start talking. After a few seconds of silence in the air, I said with some bitterness, it's time to pay the tuition. His brows furrowed at once. You know, business isn't good this year, and your Aunt Fiona is about to give birth again. I lowered my head, suppressing the bitterness in my heart, but didn't move for a long time. Actually, I had already tried my best to reduce the number of times I asked my family for money. I earned my living expenses through part-time jobs and work-study programs on weekdays. But even so, at that moment, I felt like a burden. He opened the cigarette box, then closed it and threw it into the drawer and locked it. I knew that because Fiona was pregnant, he had already started learning to quit smoking. Why don't you ask your mom for some? The moment he opened his mouth, my eyes turned red. His brows knitted impatiently. She's your mother, not someone else. I went to look for her according to the address he gave me. It was a villa by the river. I saw her again. She was still beautiful and elegant, but her figure had become a bit out of shape. There was a little girl beside her, drinking milk while babbling. She opened the door, greeted me briefly, and then hurriedly went to comfort the crying child. I sat in the garden chair. The sunlight fell on me, but I felt strangely cold. What are you doing here? Finally, after she comforted the child, she brought me a plate of fruit. I didn't know if it was sarcasm or something else when she said, "Surely you didn't come because you missed me?" I lowered my head and stared helplessly at the tips of my shoes. My throat felt as if it was blocked by cotton, and I couldn't say a word no matter what. I don't have tuition money anymore. Finally, I managed to speak, but my throat was a bit dry. She sneered and took a sip of water. Sure enough, your dad is useless. He can't even afford the tuition. When I left, she opened the fridge and took out a bottle of milk for me. Take this and drink it. I'll transfer the money to your phone later. Be careful on your way back. I'm divorced from your dad. Don't come to see me if there's nothing wrong. Thinking of how eager she was to send me away, I squatted outside the garden for a long time. Sure enough, I saw her new husband come home from work. The three of them were playing with the babbling child in the garden. Through the railing, I lowered my head. My eyes felt a bit dry, and suddenly I didn't know where to go. Later, when my younger brother was born, he would change his diapers and affectionately call him Little Treasure. On the day of the full moon banquet for my brother, he called me back and also invited some friends I didn't know. He specially arranged 2 big tables full of food at a hotel in the city. When it was time to pay the bill, he gave me his card to pay. 20,000 yuan, which was more expensive than my tuition. When I came back, he was playing with the child in his arms. He asked me, "Is your brother cute?" All the guests in the room were looking at me, but I remained silent. In my heart, I thought, not cute at all. All wrinkled and ugly as hell. It seemed that he noticed my gloomy face, and his expression turned cold too. Why are you getting worse-tempered as you grow up? Because of his words, I felt angry all over, but I didn't dare to quarrel with him. I just lowered my head and nodded carefully. He's quite cute. Once, Dad rarely posted a WeChat moment, a precious little gift from heaven. The picture attached was that little boy wearing a tiger head hat. When I saw this WeChat moment, I was in the art studio. The colors in the paint palette made me feel dizzy. I almost fell off the chair. My friends beside me kept asking me what was wrong. I stared blankly at them and shook my head, then rushed out of the classroom. I called Ryan, and the call was connected quickly. I said, "My dad doesn't want me anymore. He doesn't want me anymore." The person on the other end was silent for 2 seconds and then comforted me, "Don't be afraid. I want you. Even if the whole world doesn't want you, I want you." Thinking of this, I suddenly realized that the cracks in my relationship with Ryan had actually started to show up at that time. We talked on the phone less and less, and the responses became more and more perfunctory. If it were normal times, he would definitely comfort and console me. But now, he just habitually said some nice words. It's just that I was too careless at that time and didn't notice that when he was about to hang up the phone, he seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. I looked at Ryan across from me and suddenly said, "I'm sorry." He looked at me in confusion and just said, "As long as you don't mention divorce to me, I'll forgive you." I shook my head and refused. I sorted out my feelings for him for the first time. Maybe it started from my sophomore year when he called me less and less, and there was always a sense of relief at the end of each phone call. Or maybe it was even earlier. By then, our lives had been completely different. He had seen the outside world and also met better people. In my junior year, I started to feel a bit dazed. I couldn't sleep all night long and often kept my eyes open until dawn. My roommates advised me to see a doctor. But I shook my head. There wasn't much money left in my card. Sometimes, people without money aren't qualified to get sick. At the beginning of the year, I gritted my teeth and bought a more expensive iPad. I took orders online, but the money I earned was just enough for my own living expenses. Ryan went out to start a business with others and said he was very busy recently. So we contacted each other less and less. Later, when I sent him a WeChat message and he didn't reply for a long time, it was as if the string in my heart suddenly broke. I bought a train ticket on the same day and went to his school to look for him. I squatted at the school gate for the whole night. But I saw him intimately leaning against another person. That person reached out and pinched his cheek, and he smiled and hugged her in his arms. Actually, that wasn't the first time I saw Jolene. During the summer vacation after my second college entrance examination, Ryan took me to Beijing and introduced me to his friends. She was among them. She was his classmate in the same department, and they were in the same club. Jolene's bright smile kind of hurt my eyes. She sat gracefully opposite me, affectionately talking to Ryan about things I couldn't understand. And I stared at the food in my bowl, feeling as embarrassed and awkward as an outsider. When she asked me about my school, I inevitably felt a bit inferior. While Ryan was putting food in my bowl, he was joking with others at the same time. They started smoking at the dinner table, and the smoke filled the air. I just felt it was a bit choking, looking up and seeing his flirtatious and skillful movements. I just felt that he had changed a lot. I followed them and saw them go to the amusement park and then to the cinema. During the 2-hour movie, I just stood at the door, holding my mobile phone in my hand. Then I suddenly realized that most of the time now, I was the one who took the initiative, and he only replied with a few words. I just stared at the screen of my mobile phone with red eyes, waiting all the time. When I saw them coming out from a distance, Jolene's lipstick was already smeared. I followed them at a distance and saw them enter a hotel. They seemed to notice me. Ryan looked back for a long time. I hid myself in the crowd, pretending to be someone who was going to buy something in the roadside store. I forgot what was in the snack bar that day. I just remembered that someone comforted me when I was trembling and asked, "Miss, do you need help?" My mental state was already very bad at that time. I looked at them, and the people around me seemed like hideous ghosts, making it hard for me to see clearly. I went to the toilet in a nearby bar, trembling as I called Ryan. The phone rang and then was hung up again and again. I made more than 30 calls, but he didn't answer any of them. I turned off my mobile phone, found a hotel, took a shower and went to bed. I didn't fall asleep that night. I kept my eyes open until dawn, even though I felt physically and mentally exhausted. I really hated him. I really wanted to take a knife and kill him. Knowing that I was most afraid of being abandoned, he still abandoned me. Lying in bed thinking about it, Ryan's face suddenly became hideous in my world. He called me back the next morning. I cried and told him that I had been raped. He was very worried and kept asking me where I was on the phone. I sent him an address and then calmly started to set up the scene. After he came, he kept comforting me and helped me put on my messy clothes. And I, with red eyes, kissed his lips that had kissed others. I grabbed him and asked, "Will you abandon me?" He shook his head without any hesitation. "No." "Then shall we get married?" He hesitated. I looked into his eyes and asked sharply, "Are you also going to abandon me?" Ryan said, "No, no. Let's get married." He didn't suspect me. Maybe he thought I wouldn't lie to him, or maybe he was just too panicked. So we got married. He seemed eager to prove his love for me and show his determination not to abandon me. On the same day, he bought tickets and went home to steal the household register. On the day we got the marriage certificate, we stayed in a small hotel. The people around me tossed and turned, but I slept extremely soundly. I told a huge lie and used his last bit of love to keep him by my side. After marriage, he treated me the same as before. He even shifted the focus of his work to my city. This matter was finally discovered in the year I graduated from college, which was the second year after our marriage. At that time, I had just received an offer from a big company, specifically responsible for the character illustrations for games. When I got home that day, I noticed something was wrong with him. He looked at me with dark eyes and asked me, "Why did you lie to me?" I paused when I was changing my shoes, and then looked up at him. "So what?" He seemed extremely angry. He gritted his teeth, and his chest heaved violently. I looked up at him, and my voice was very calm. "Are you very angry?" He seemed to be so angry that he laughed instead. "Don't you think you should be? Then I asked you, what were you doing that night?" "I made more than 20 calls to you. I went to pour a glass of water." He sat on the sofa and his voice softened. "Luna, I don't intend to quarrel with you." I smiled at him with narrowed eyes. "Ryan, you went to a hotel with Jolene that night." I saw his trembling hands, and finally he covered his face. I didn't know if he was laughing or crying. "Luna." He looked at me with red eyes and grabbed my arm. "After that happened, I always thought if only I had." He stopped talking. I knew what he wanted to say. He had always thought that I was bullied and put me in the position of a victim. He was constantly regretting the mistake he made that day. He thought that if he had replied to the WeChat message, if he had answered the phone, if he hadn't been with Jolene, none of this would have happened. But later I found out that none of this had actually happened. He was deceived by the girl he grew up with, and as a result, he transferred this guilt to Jolene again. I asked, "Do you want to divorce me?" He held me in his arms, trembling all over, which made me feel scared. "I won't leave. I won't leave even if I die." After that, he never mentioned this matter again, as if it had never existed. In the second year of our marriage, we had a quarrel. The reason was that he was very close to a female employee in the company. At that time, he was in a rising period at work, and that young employee chirped around him all the time. He had given her the note "Little Sparrow" in his contacts. They often chatted. Sometimes, even when he was having a meal, he would use his mobile phone to reply to her messages and would smile from time to time. Ryan told me that she was his colleague. Later, we had a big quarrel and had a cold war for several days. It was also at that time that I realized something was wrong with my emotions. That morning, with a cold face, the first thing I said when I saw Ryan was when we were going to get divorced. The cup he was holding dropped onto the carpet, and suddenly he hugged me in his arms. He kissed my lips forcefully and finally buried his face in my neck, murmuring in a low voice, "Luna, I love you. Believe me, I love you." He gave me his mobile phone and changed the password to my birthday right in front of me. Then he deleted the WeChat contact of that female colleague. "Luna, I won't talk to her anymore. Don't be cold to me anymore." He hugged me and begged for forgiveness. "It's not worth it to be cold to me for so many days just because of this." Later, he really didn't have any contact with that female colleague anymore. He resigned and started a studio by starting a business with several friends. Because my mental state was really bad, I also left my job. I became a full-time contributor to the publishing house at home, and my monthly income was quite good. Later, at the invitation of the editor, I began to serialize comics on the website. However, we still quarreled frequently, over trifles that didn't matter, over unfounded suspicions and doubts, over arguments about different viewpoints, and even over whether the food was too salty or not. Whenever this happened, we would blame and curse each other, using the nastiest words we could think of, as if we wanted to turn our words into sharp knives and stab each other full of holes. The last big quarrel we had was because Jolene got drunk and went to Ryan's company. Coincidentally, I happened to go to his company to bring him an umbrella in the heavy rain and just saw the scene where they were hugging each other. That scene hurt my eyes. I stared at them, the hatred in my eyes almost became tangible, and then I turned around and ran into the rain. He also saw me and hurriedly let go of the person in his arms and ran towards me. His shirt was still wet, which was the rain from Jolene's body. Later, I fell on the road because I was walking in a hurry. The rain was very heavy that night, and the heavy rain hitting my body was painful. I lost my first child. That weak life that appeared somehow left before I even noticed it. At that time, he said, "Luna, we will have children in the future. This is just an accident." He explained to me what happened that night and gave me countless assurances that they would have nothing to do with each other anymore. Jolene also apologized to me with red eyes. Later, she went abroad. Ryan seemed to have become the gentle and considerate man he used to be again, and I also began to try hard to learn to be a qualified wife. The number of our quarrels became fewer and fewer. I began to stop thinking about other things. Life should have been getting better and better. But I had thought it too simply. I forgot that a broken mirror can never be made whole again. He was still stubbornly reluctant to let go, as stubborn as a child. As long as the topic of divorce was mentioned, he would start to respond with silence. I couldn't muster up the energy to make a fuss, to compete with him like I used to. Suddenly, I felt very tired. But when I looked at his eyebrows and eyes, I felt that he should also be very tired. I didn't deny that he actually had feelings for me, and I couldn't deny that I still loved him either. It's just that this love was gradually fading away. In the past few years of our marriage, we both forgot each other's good points. When we thought of each other, all that came to mind were the ferocious faces we had during the quarrels. When I first entered university, there was a senior in the same department who liked me. He would give me a bouquet of flowers every morning when I left the dormitory. He did this for more than a year. Ryan looked at me, and there was no emotion showing on his face. Then he said, "And then?" I lowered my head and thought for a long time. All I could remember was that he was a clean and fresh young man with fair skin, and his eyes would curve into a smile when he smiled. Every time I refused to take the flowers. I also said a lot of mean things. I told him not to come to me, saying that he was annoying, like a sticky plaster. But he just smiled and didn't take it to heart. Once I was sick, and he carried me to the hospital on his back. The sun was very bright that day, and he was sweating all over while carrying me. Ryan's tone was a bit dry. "Oh, he's quite a nice person." Later, I told him that I would never fall in love with him in my life. His affection made me feel troubled. He was very sad at that time, and then he never came to see me again. I raised my head to look at him and said as I looked at him, "He's indeed a very nice person." He was silent for a long time, and his long bangs covered the emotions in his eyes. I smiled and continued, "Ryan, look, it's not that I haven't met people better than you. It's just that at that time, I thought you were the best and no one could compare to you. But you don't think I'm the best. In your eyes, Jolene is better than me, and that woman you noted as Little Sparrow is also better than me." Suddenly I understood why I was so afraid of Jolene. Once I was very afraid of being abandoned. I thought it was because of her appearance that Ryan and I had become what we were now. In the end I couldn't hold on to anything and nothing was left. Mom was my sister's mom. Dad was my brother's dad. My lover was Jolene's lover. I looked at him and said softly, "Let's get divorced. Let me go." After a long while, he replied softly, "Okay." I moved out. He left all his savings to me, but I didn't take them. In the end, he gave me the majority of the shares in his company. His company was developing very well and the annual dividends were particularly impressive. On the day of our divorce, there was a heavy snowfall. Suddenly, he called out to me. I turned around and looked at him for a long time, but he didn't say anything. Finally, he waved at me. On the night of our divorce, I cried a lot. Finally, I was free. I didn't have to worry about who the person beside me was thinking of anymore. I didn't have to become so ugly anymore. I didn't have to. I used the manuscript fees I had saved up over the years to buy a small house. The decoration of the small house was arranged according to my favorite style. I laid a plush carpet on the floor, making the home feel warm. I went to see a psychologist by myself. Actually, it wasn't as scary as I had thought. During the spring festival, I took a plane by myself and went to the north to see the ice and snow kingdom. I took pictures with the big snow bears, went to learn skiing, and then fell flat on my back in the snow. When I had free time, I learned to edit videos and posted them on short video apps. Suddenly, many people watched the video that day. Everyone said that the way I fell was very cute. Many people also said Happy New Year to me. I was a bit embarrassed. With a red face, I held my mobile phone and replied to them one by one for a long time. Someone sent a picture on my mobile phone. It was a picture of Ryan looking haggard as he stared at the computer screen. Sister-in-law, please take Ryan home for the spring festival. He's working too hard. He'll exhaust himself to death. I typed slowly, deleted what I typed, and finally said, "We're divorced." On the screen, the other side showed, typing. After a long while, the other side sent an emoji of a sigh. In the spring of the next year, when I came out of the hospital, I ran into my mom. Her hair had turned a bit white, and her figure had started to lose its shape, but she was still good looking. Her back was straight, and her hair was neatly coiled behind her head. She was wearing a retro-style dark green plush coat. She snatched the medical record from my hand, opened it, and looked at it for a long time with a solemn face, and then gave it back to me. "Why are you here?" I asked. Kiki came to City A to participate in a competition, and I accompanied her. I remembered the moments she posted not long ago. In the picture, there was a little girl wearing a ballet costume, raising her head like a beautiful little white swan. The second picture was a trophy, and the caption was, "My proudest little princess." She began to show off her child like an ordinary mother. Suddenly, I remembered that I seemed to have never been anyone's pride. I smiled awkwardly and didn't want to exchange too many pleasantries. I nodded and was about to leave. She called out to me and finally rummaged in her bag for a while and found a card. "I heard from Ryan's family that you two got divorced. Take this card. The password is your birthday. Take good care of yourself when you're alone." I didn't want to take it, but she forced it into my bag. This episode was thus passed over. There was 500,000 yuan in the card. I looked at the card for a long time, not quite understanding what she meant. In early summer, the comic that I had been drawing for 3 years had already been completed. This comic had always ranked first in popularity on the platform. Now it started to be sold in physical form. The editor of the publishing house asked me if I had any idea of holding a signing event. I didn't refuse. That day, I was busy for a long time before I got home. When I was browsing moments at night, I scrolled to the video account posted by my mom, and it was surprisingly the scene of today's signing event. I opened her chat interface. It was blank. The only message was still the holiday greeting she sent in the group during the spring festival. I hesitated for a long time and finally didn't say anything and exited the page. I went traveling to other places with my friends, those places that I had wanted to go to but hadn't been able to before. Then I cut the videos of the trips and posted them on my short video account. Occasionally, I would also upload some videos of me drawing and gained a small number of fans. I hadn't thought of Ryan for a long time. When I thought of him occasionally, it felt like something from a previous life. Until that day, I was holding a silver-shaded cat that I bought from the street. A drunk man squatted at my door. He looked at me with red eyes. He looked at the cat in my arms and suddenly burst into tears. "You got a cat?" he muttered to himself. "Didn't we agree to raise a cat together?" I frowned, and suddenly a hard-to-describe pain surged in my heart, making it hard for me to breathe. He left again. That night, I suddenly couldn't fall asleep again. I tossed and turned with a headache. The newly bought kitten made weak meowing sounds and carefully rubbed its head against mine. It was small and a bit smelly. I just brought it home, and I didn't even have any food for it. I went to cook some beef for it. It ate with gusto and made satisfied purring sounds. And I started crying loudly in the empty room again. In the following days, he began to appear frequently in my world. Sometimes he would send me flowers, and sometimes he would bring me the new desserts from the Jinsho pavilion. I refused him and even clearly said that I didn't want to see him. But he seemed to be a bit persistent and blocked my way, not allowing me to leave. "Luna, we've known each other since we were born. It's been 29 years. I don't believe you don't like me." For more than 20 years, didn't you also fall in love with someone else? I looked up at him, and suddenly those memories flooded back. I felt as if my head was splitting with pain. I crouched down, and the tears just wouldn't stop flowing. This was the man I had loved for so many years. I grasped his trouser leg. "Let me go, please." I began to regret it and shouted recklessly, "Why do you think I married you?" "Because I hated you to death." With my eyes red, I said, "The moment I saw you cheating on me, I wished I could stab you to death. That's why I married you, to keep your relationship with Jolin in the dark forever." He crouched down and hugged me, trying desperately to soothe my emotions. Luna, you're just saying this out of anger, right?" I sneered. "No. Every day I spent with you was disgusting. When I think of you kissing others and being so intimate with them, I feel sick." I had always thought that disgusting was the lowest evaluation one could give to a person. Ryan knew this about me too. He let go of his hands and his eyes showed a bit of pain. "Do you really think so?" he asked. I used to be trapped in my own web. Clearly, I knew that if I just stepped out of the circle related to you, I would be okay. But I just wouldn't do it. I still clung to those feelings. So I deserve to suffer every day. It's my own fault, and I accept it. But please don't come to me anymore. We knew each other so well that we also knew what words could hurt the most. Sometimes I even wondered what would have happened if we hadn't gotten married back then. What if I had immediately condemned Ryan for cheating when I found out and staged a scene of the betrayed wife confronting the mistress? What would have happened between us? I thought that perhaps I would have become his unforgettable first love, a thorn between them, pricking them from time to time and never going away. Then in the long and dull marriage, Jolin would also have to face countless Lunas, and their love would gradually fade away. Thinking like this, I even wished that I could turn back time and go back to the beginning. This thought was rather vicious, and I was even startled by myself. Because of taking the medicine, my figure had become a bit out of shape. So I got a fitness card and started working on my new comic. Occasionally, I would start a live stream to draw and joke with my little fans. They were all a group of really lovely people. The next time I heard about Jolin was that she got married. On the eve of her wedding, she applied to add me as a friend and said a lot of things. It was basically that after she returned to China, apart from picking Ryan up at the airport, she had very little contact with him at other times. I immediately blocked her. The sun outside was warm. The chubby and cute kitten was sleeping on the cat stand. I kissed its little head. Chubby, so cute. Extra story. After they got divorced, Ryan seldom thought of Luna. He was too busy with work to even remember her. However, he had been following her video account and found that she had been living quite well recently and was smiling more often. Ryan was relieved. Everything was developing in a good direction. He swore that he really didn't think of Luna at all. Until that time when he went back to his hometown to visit his mother. In the old mailbox at home, he received a strange letter. It said, "To Ryan at the age of 30. He was stunned and suddenly remembered something. When he was 17 years old, he and Luna sneaked out of the school gate during the physical education class and went to a coffee shop named Time to enjoy the air conditioning. The shop owner said that they could write a letter and leave it there, and he would send it to the other person in the future. Ryan thought it was a bit ridiculous. Who could tell what would happen in more than 10 years? Maybe it was just a scam. But Luna was so excited about it that he just let her do it. She wrote earnestly. He pretended to peek. Luna blushed and pushed his face with her hand. "You're so stingy. Anyway, you're also writing to me. That's different. This is for you at the age of 30. She really paid 100 yuan and she looked quite reluctant when paying. Ryan thought, what a little fool. She wasn't even afraid that the coffee shop owner would run away with the money. Thinking this, he stuffed 100 yuan from his pocket into her school bag. The 30-year-old Ryan opened the letter. The letter was written in a girl's delicate handwriting. It was more like a description of their future life than just a letter, full of a young girl's feelings. In the letter, they got married right after graduating from university. After marriage, They must have 2 children, a boy and a girl. The children must be very beautiful. They had their own small house, which was very warm. There must be a big French window and a warm carpet. They would also raise a kitten named Chubby because Luna thought that chubby little animals were cuter and more charming. But the 17-year-old Luna didn't expect that at the age of 30, they had already divorced. Suddenly, all kinds of memories about Luna flooded into Ryan's mind. The little girl who used to follow him and call him brother when she was a child, the shy and graceful girl who blushed easily when she was a teenager. That was the beautiful dream of his entire youth. They used to hide in the corner and kiss secretly. He climbed onto her window to ask for a kiss and then waited for the girl to shyly kiss his lips. Their hands held together under the desk, and the glistening look in the girl's eyes when they looked at each other. At that time, they both thought that they couldn't live without each other. Later, how it had changed, he couldn't even remember. He only remembered the daily complaints on the phone. He felt so tired, but he still had to muster up his energy to deal with them. He thought that the once sunny girl had changed, becoming silent and gloomy. The Luna in his memory was shy, lively, like a dancing butterfly. At that time, he was looking for a job and was so distracted every day. So when he saw Luna's call coming in, his first reaction wasn't happiness but inexplicable annoyance. Sometimes he even hoped that the phone would never ring. He thought of Jolene. Jolene was an optimistic and positive person. She would tell him that there were dishes he liked in the cafeteria today and reserve a seat for him. She would tell him that he was so great today and could learn professional courses easily. He thought that he preferred to hear these things rather than listen to someone complaining that the questions they did all day were so difficult. For a moment, he even thought that he didn't love Luna anymore. But when he thought of the girl's red and teary eyes, he couldn't help but start to hesitate again. Because just the thought of losing her would make him feel extremely uncomfortable. He couldn't lose her. So he didn't accept the divorce. He thought that he still loved her. But the Ryan at that time didn't understand the Luna now. She was irritable, suspicious, and had a bad temper. Even in normal social situations, she would become very suspicious, quarreling hysterically as if she had to drive away even a female fly around him. Whenever this happened, he felt that his love for her had gradually faded. But as long as he thought of separating from her, he would start to think that he loved Luna and couldn't leave her. The moment he finished reading the letter, all of Luna's good points came into his mind. Luna who waited for him at home, Luna who cooked noodles for him, Luna who brought him meals, Luna who accompanied him to work overtime until late at night. Luna was very shy and couldn't bring herself to refuse others. She would blush easily when others said a few words to her. She was so lovely with a bit of cute and awkward pride. She was kind-hearted. When she saw someone on the street having a hard time, she would secretly shed tears. He didn't have such strong empathy. Every time he saw her sad, he tried to comfort her again and again but just couldn't make her feel better. On one hand, he thought that girls were really made of water. On the other hand, he thought that there were so many poor people. What was there to be pitiful about? Now he could finally answer her. She was also the best person in his heart. It wasn't Jolene, nor anyone else. She was the girl he had protected for 20 years. He went to find her overnight, but Luna didn't want to see him. He didn't give up and went to find her again, only to hear her say a lot of hurtful words. She begged him to let her go. He didn't go to find Luna again. He just went home and put crosses on one item after another. 2 children, a cat named Chubby. Traveling around the world, staying together all their lives. Loving only her all his life. He thought about it and put a tick here. It's just a pity that Luna didn't want to see him now. He thought about it and finally put down the pen. Well, she didn't want to see him. The 30-year-old Ryan hadn't accomplished a single thing.